The next thing I knew, someone was banging on the door. I looked at my watch. 5 a.m. When the attendant knocked again, I said, "Thank you," in a voice loud enough for him to hear, then rose and looked out of the small frame window. The only sign of morning was a pale glow of light towards the east. I walked down the hall and showered, then dressed quickly and went downstairs. The dining room was open, and a surprising number of people were moving about. I ate only fruit and hurried outside. Strands of fog drifted across the grounds and clung to the distant meadows. Songbirds called one another from the trees. As I walked away from the lodge, the very top of the sun breached the horizon towards the east. The color was spectacular. The sky was a deep blue above the bright peach horizon. I arrived at the knoll 15 minutes early, so I sat down and leaned against the trunk of a large tree, fascinated by the web of gnarled branches growing out above my head. In a few minutes, I heard someone walking towards me along the path, and I looked that way, expecting to see Sarah. Instead, I saw someone I didn't know, a man in his mid-40s. He left the path and walked my way without noticing me. When he was within 10 feet, he saw me with a start, which made me flinch also. "Oh, hello," he said in a rich Brooklyn accent. He was dressed in jeans and hiking boots and looked exceptionally fit and athletic. His hair was curly and receding. I nodded. "Sorry about walking up on you so suddenly." "No problem." He told me his name was Phil Stone, and I told him who I was and that I was waiting for a friend. "You must be doing some research here," I added. "Not really. I work for the University of Southern California. We're doing studies in another province on the rainforest depletion, but whenever I get a chance, I like to drive over here and take a break. I like hanging out where the forests are so different." He looked around. "Do you realize some of these trees here are close to 500 years old? This is truly a virgin forest, a rare thing, province on the rainforest depletion, but whenever I get a chance, I like to drive over here and take a break. I like hanging out where the forests are so different." He looked around. Do you realize some of these trees here are close to 500 years old? This is truly a virgin forest, a rare thing. Everything is in perfect balance. The larger trees filtering the sunlight, allowing a multitude of tropical plant life to thrive underneath. The plant life in a rainforest is old too, but it grows differently. It's basically jungle. This is more like what an old forest looks like in a temperate zone, such as in the United States. I've never seen anything like this there. I know. Only a few remain. Most of the ones I know were sold by the government to lumber interests, as though all they could see in a forest like this is board feet of lumber. Damn shame that anyone would mess with a place like this. Look at the energy. You can see the energy here? He looked at me closely, as though deciding whether to elaborate. Yes, I can, he said finally. Well, I haven't been able to. I tried yesterday when they were meditating with the plants at the garden. Oh, I couldn't see fields that large at first either. I had to start by looking at my fingers. How do you mean? Let's move over there, he said, pointing to an area where the trees parted slightly and blue sky showed through overhead. I'll show you. When we arrived, he said, lean back and touch the tips of your index fingers together. Keep the blue sky in the background. Now separate the tips about an inch and look at the area directly between them. What do you see? Dust on the lens of my eye? Ignore that. Take your eyes out of focus a little and move the tips closer and then further apart. As he talked, I moved my fingers around, unsure what he meant by taking my eyes out of focus. I finally placed my gaze vaguely on the area between my fingers. Both fingertips went slightly blurry, and as this happened, I saw something like strands of smoke stretching between the tips. Good grief, I said, and explained what I saw. That's it. Now just play with that a while. I touched all 4 fingers together, then my palms and forearms. In each case, I continued to see streaks of energy between the body parts. I dropped my arms and looked at Phil. "Oh, you want to see mine?" he asked. He stood up and stepped back a few feet, positioning his head and torso so the sky would be directly behind him. I tried for a few minutes, but a noise behind us broke my concentration. I turned and saw Sarah. Phil stepped forward and grinned broadly. "Is this the person you've been waiting for?" As Sarah approached, she too was smiling. "Hey, I know you," pointing at Phil. They embraced warmly, then Sarah looked at me and said, "Sorry I'm late. My mental alarm didn't go off for some reason, but now I guess I know why. It gave you two a chance to talk. What have you been doing?" "He just learned how to see the fields of energy between his fingers," Phil said. Sarah looked at me. "Last year, Phil and I were up here at this very spot learning to do the same thing." She glanced at Phil. "Let's put our backs together. Maybe he can see the energy between us." They stood back to back in front of me. I suggested they move closer, and they stepped towards me until the space between us was about 4 feet. They were silhouetted against the sky, which was still a dark blue in that direction. To my surprise, the space between them looked lighter. It was yellow, or a yellowish pink. "He sees it," Phil said, reading my expression. Sarah turned and grabbed Phil by the arm, and they slowly stepped away from me so that their bodies were perhaps 10 feet away. Surrounding their upper torsos was a whitish pink field of energy. "Okay," Sarah said seriously. She had walked over and crouched down beside me. "Now look at the scene here, the beauty." I was immediately awed by the shapes and forms around me. I seemed to be able to focus on each of the massive oaks in a total way, not merely on one part, but on the whole form at once. I was struck by the unique shape and configuration of limbs each displayed. I looked from one to the other, turning all around. Doing this somehow increased the feeling of presence each oak exuded to me, as though I was seeing them for the first time, or at least fully appreciating them for the first time. Suddenly, the tropical foliage underneath the huge trees attracted my attention. I again looked at the unique form each plant exhibited. I also noticed the way each type of plant grew together with others of its own kind in what struck me as little communities. For instance, the tall banana tree type plants were often encircled by small philodendrons who themselves were poised amongst even other smaller fern-like plants. When I looked at these mini-environments, I was again struck by their uniqueness of outline and presence. Less than 10 feet away, a particular foliage plant caught my eye. I had often owned just this type as a houseplant, a particular variegated form of philodendron. Dark green, its foliage branched out to about 4 feet in diameter. The shape of this plant seemed perfectly healthy and vibrant. "Yeah, focus on that one, but loosely," Sarah said. As I did, I played with the focus of my eyes. At one point, I tried to focus on the space 6 inches to one side of each physical part of the plant. Gradually, I began to pick up glimpses of light. Then a single adjustment of my focus, I could see a bubble of white light encircling the plant. "I'm seeing something now." "Look around some," Sarah said. I stepped back in shock. Around each plant within my vision was a field of whitish light, visible yet totally transparent, so that none of the plant's color or form was obscured. I realized that what I was seeing was an extension of each plant's unique beauty. It was though first I had seen the plants, then I had seen their uniqueness and presence, and then something had amplified in their pure beauty of their physical expression, at which time I had seen the energy fields. "See if you can see this," Sarah said. She sat down in front of me and faced the philodendron. A plume of whitish light encircling her body erupted outward and engulfed the philodendron. The diameter of the plant's energy field, in turn, broadened by several feet. "Damn!" I exclaimed, which provoked laughter between the two friends. Soon I was laughing myself, conscious of the peculiarity of what was happening, but feeling absolutely no uneasiness at seeing, quite readily, phenomena I had totally doubted minutes earlier. I realized that the perception of these fields, rather than evoking a surrealistic sensation, actually made the things about me seem more solid and real than before. Yet, at the same time, everything around me seemed different. The only reference I had for the experience was perhaps a movie which enhanced the color of a forest in order to make it seem mystical and enchanted. The plants, the leaves, the sky now all stood with a presence and a slight shimmer that suggested life there, and perhaps consciousness beyond our ordinary assumption. After seeing this, there would be no way to take a forest for granted again. I looked at Phil. Sit down and put your energy on the philodendron. I'd like to compare. Phil appeared perplexed. I can't do it. I don't know why. I looked at Sarah. Some people can and some can't. We haven't figured it out. Marjorie has to screen her graduate students to see who can do it. A couple of psychologists are trying to correlate this ability with personal characteristics, but so far no one knows. Let me try it. Okay, go ahead, replied Sarah. I sat down and faced the plant. Sarah and Phil stood at right angles to me. Okay, how do I begin? Just focus your attention on the plant, as though to inflate it with your energy. I looked at the plant and imagined energy swelling up inside it. Then, after a few minutes, I looked over at the two. Sorry, Sarah said wryly. You're obviously not one of the chosen few. I shot a mock frown at Phil. Angry voices from the path below interrupted our conversation. Through the trees we could see a group of men passing, talking harshly amongst themselves. Who are those people? Phil asked, looking at Sarah. I don't know. More folks upset with what we're doing, I guess. I looked back at the forest around us. Everything appeared ordinary again. Hey, I can't see the energy fields anymore. Some things bring you right down, don't they? Remarked Sarah. Phil smiled and patted my shoulder. You can do it again any time now. It's just like riding a bicycle. All you have to do is see the beauty and then extend from there. I suddenly remembered to check the time.